Chapter 4. The Ruined Temple.
The ruined temple of Lathander was a spectacle that made Tav catch her breath. Hidden deep within the perilous valleys of the Cloud Peaks, where forests grew and flourished unchecked by mortal hands, stood the ancient stretching towers of the Bringer of the Dawn. The Rosy Morn Monastery couldn't hold a candle to the structure before them, even as it had been reclaimed by the hands of nature and growth. Vines and moss covered the stones and columns, blanketing the meticulous and sprawling construction all the way to the domes at the top. A great waterfall spewed out of its central entrance, a river having diverted long ago to create a watery barrier all around the ruins. Tavriel and Astarion sat on their horses, marveling at the broken towers draped in vines. So, this is it then. The task of infiltrating the ruins was anything but, and Tav knew he was nervous about this.
Nothing good ever comes easy. At first glance, it seemed that the water that surrounded the temple was going to be a challenge. They would have to look for a way to cross. That waterfall is beautiful.
And deadly.
Tavriel gave him a quizzical look.
Running water, love. Vampire, remember? It burns like acid.
Tavriel shuddered. Well, try not to give in to the urge for a swim, I suppose.
Astarion rolled his eyes. I'll do my very best.
The thought of falling into the water made him shiver. They had plenty of time yet to decide their next moves. They had started up the trail at sunset, when it was safe for Astarion to travel again. They could set up their camp somewhere nearby, and by some twist of good fortune, they found a cave. In a valley, the sun was shielded by the surrounding peaks, but neither Tav or Astarion were going to take any chances. After watering and grazing their horses, unfurling their bedrolls in the cave, Tav and Astarion took the supplies they needed for the climb to the temple. Scouting around the raging waters surrounding the ruins, they found an easily reachable crossing of sunken columns. The flat, exposed capitals created a makeshift bridge that they could jump across, one by one.
Astarion, sure-footed and agile, was familiar with this territory. Tavriel, carrying her laden pack, lost her balance and nearly fell over the edge of the waterfall into the lake below.
"It's a long way down, my darling."
Tavriel was following behind him, bravely taking the next jump. Astarion managed to reach the other side, landing at the base of the ruins with ease, before turning around to see how Tav fared.
Come on then, one more. He reached out his hand, watching as she readied her next leap. She slipped. Astarion caught her wrist, pulling her up toward him. I've got you, he assured, taking a moment to steal a kiss. Tavriel gave him a smile. They paused for a moment to catch their breath, taking in the sight of the once majestic sanctuary, now overrun by the relentless grasp of nature. Now, let's go steal a dawn shard from a god.
The moon shone high above, illuminating the forest of vines that covered the walls of the impressive ruins. Astarion adjusted his studded leather, pulling on the hem of his gloves to make sure they were secure, and strode forward with all the confidence of a rogue. He pulled out the dagger at his belt, cutting away the vines to reveal an opening, a break in the wall. "After you, my love." She passed him, throwing him a cheeky smile before ducking past the cut vines and stepping inside. She stood in awe. The heavy scent of damp earth and ancient stone filled the air, clinging to their senses.
The temple had long surrendered to nature's embrace. Vines hung like verdant tapestries from the ceiling, their tendrils intertwining with the ancient masonry.
Roots snaked their way through cracks and crevices, as if trying to hold the crumbling structure together with a living net. Moonlight seeped through gaps in the masonry, casting dappled patterns of blue light and shadow that danced across the floor. Even in its dilapidated state, the temple retained a haunting beauty. Its towering columns and elegant arches still spoke of its former majesty, and a lingering sense of spiritual solemnity hung in the air. Ruined temples never failed to fascinate Tav, but Astarion was unimpressed as he followed her through the broken wall.
Oh goody, a verdant obstacle course, my favorite. Ugh, this is going to take hours.
Nothing we haven't done before.
They ventured deeper into the cavernous ruins. The tiles on the floor were broken through with twisting roots, over which they had to step carefully. A grand, broken staircase leading to the top of the citadel loomed before them. There was a sizable gap halfway up the ascent.
"I'll go first," said Astarion, moving past her to jump over. He turned toward her, signaling for her to follow and stretching out his hand. She caught it as she landed on the platform next to him.
So far so good.
Astarion gave her a look, something between a smirk and doubt. They climbed the rest of the broken stairs, moving around collapsed pillars, ducking under old roots and vines.
It's almost like this place is alive.
Astarion looked around, his eyes tracing the creeping tendrils of green that seemed to merge seamlessly with the art and iconography adorning the walls. Or it's being consumed. Rather poetic, don't you think? A place devoted to the god of renewal and dawn being swallowed by the eternal cycle of life and decay.
Tavriel couldn't help but smile at his commentary. Despite his distaste for the divine, there was no denying Astarion's ability to see the beauty and irony in their surroundings. It was one of the many contradictions that made him so compelling. They continued to navigate their way through the temple, careful to avoid the gaping holes where once grand staircases stood, and scaling crumbling ledges when necessary. Each step forward seemed to take them deeper into a world forgotten by time. The winding path they took through the ruins led them to a platform looming high above them. The stairs that led up there must have collapsed long ago, the weathered, broken vestiges strewn all around them on the floor where they stood. The dawn shard was near, she could feel it. A glittering golden light danced on the broken dome high above their heads.
We'll need to climb with a rope.
Tav dropped her pack and pulled out a grappling hook and rope. She handed them to Astarion. "You're better at this. You do it."
Very well. A crooked smile graced his lips as he took the grappling hook and rope from Tav. He assessed the towering precipice above, his eyes narrowing as he gauged the distance. With a swift, practiced motion, he swung the grappling hook in an arc and let it fly. It soared through the air, tracing a graceful parabola before latching on to an outcropping of stone above. A firm tug confirmed it was secure. Easy.
Tavriel grinned at him and began to climb. He watched cautiously as she struggled upward. Tav's arms burned with the effort, unused to such rigorous ascent. The mage started the climb strong but was grunting with the effort by the time she'd inched to the top. Her breath caught in her throat as she stood before what could only be the most magnificent gem she had ever seen. It shined brightly, mesmerizing her, warming her soul as if the afternoon sun itself was within it.
It's here! This has to be it!
She poked her head over the ledge, down to where Astarion stood, waving at him to climb up. He was swifter than she had been, and soon he joined her on the platform. Astarion too felt the warmth emanating from the gem.
a resplendent light he vaguely remembered and sorely missed. Unlike the real sun, this didn't burn his pale skin, didn't turn him to ash. This was the Dawn Shard. For once throughout this whole journey, he felt optimistic, the way Tav had been the entire time. Just as before, she had been right. Anything was possible, and maybe a vampire could walk in the sun. As Astarion and Tavriel stood before the radiant Dawn Shard, its luminous glow seemed to beckon to them. Tavriel's hand reached out, her fingers trembling with anticipation. Astarion grabbed her hand before she could touch it.
Need I remind you, darling? I'll not have another Sunlands incident in a god's-forsaken place like this. We don't have mysterious liches with us for any convenient resurrections this time.
Astarion had them both step back, and he scanned around the area, his eyes keen to land on any ancient mechanical monstrosities, ready to unleash chaos. He hummed to himself, unconvinced, crouching in front of the Dawn Shard, laying there on its stone dais. There didn't seem to be any trap at all, just a glowing gem on a rock.
Well,
The gleaming Dawn Shard seemed to captivate him. Astarion didn't answer at first, considering the dais and looking for something, anything that might spell doom for them both.
Nothing. Astarion reached out towards the shimmering gem. His fingertips brushed the surface of the Dawn Shard, and the world exploded. A blinding flash of light erupted from the gem, knocking Astarion off his feet. His body tumbled backward. He screamed as pain seared through his eyes, as if 1,000 suns had pierced his soul. He could feel the intense heat, his mind overwhelmed by the agony of the radiant explosion.
an electrified crackling surrounded her, powered by some divine force or the weave itself. A shapeless form sprouted from the gem, as if materializing from its internal light. It coalesced into an armored, human-like form made of pure light and fire, its wings stretching out from behind and a fiery ghost blade in its hand. It was a shrine warden. Tavriel stood dumbstruck for a moment, unable to comprehend what was happening.
Astarion!
She was fixated on the shrine warden. She stumbled backward, putting distance between herself and the ethereal creature. This was not good. Her hands clenched into fists, her knuckles white. For a moment, her mind faltered under the weight of fear. Spells she thought she knew vanished from her mind like smoke. Astarion's cries of pain gripped her heart, pounding in her chest like a war drum. The shrine warden raised its ghost blade, its gaze unwavering. Tavriel gasped and cast a shield spell around herself, but the blow knocked her to her knees. She felt tears welling up in her eyes. Even with all her determination and bluster, she couldn't do this alone.
Astarion, help me!
Astarion heard Tav's desperate cry and struggled to reach her. The pain from the light felt like it had pierced his brain. He panted and groaned, clutching his face and eyes. His hands swept around on the floor, finding only empty air at the edge of the platform. Panicked, he scrambled backward to avoid falling over the ledge. All Astarion could do was crawl away, his mind racing. Tav was alone. She needed him. Hells, she needed him. He rubbed his eyes and blinked, trying to clear his vision. His throat felt raw from the strangled cursing of the gods, all of them, but Lathander most of all.
Astarion, say something. Anything.
He heard her desperate plea through the haze of agony and disorientation. He fought to answer her. I'm here! Another clash, another strike. Electricity crackled through the air, making his skin tingle. He cursed himself for being so weak. Get up, he told himself. Help her! Damn it, she's fighting alone!
Tav's shield shattered under the force of the ghost blade's final blow. She tumbled backward, managing to roll away just in time to avoid another strike. Darts of light lanced from her fingertips, piercing the shrine warden's ethereal form.
The creature staggered backward, its movement slowing. It was close. Die! The area was filled with an ice-cold blast that shot forward, chilling the air, freezing the shrine warden. Taking a dangerous chance, Tav grabbed her dagger. She thrust the blade forward into the ethereal terror. It dissipated without so much as a whimper. In the space of a breath, it was gone. The dagger clattered to the floor. Tav fell to her knees, exhausted and out of spells.
Astarion! Tav cried out, adrenaline surging. She forced herself to her feet and stumbled over, her legs heavy as iron. She collapsed next to Astarion, who was huddled in the corner between the stone railing and wall. She wrapped her arms around him and held him tight. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't care. The fight was over. They were safe. They were alive. It had been too close.
Astarion, for all his self-assurance, his confidence, and his airs, had none of those now. His body was as still as stone as Tavriel sobbed against his shoulder. He gently put his arm around her and held her silently, letting her cry.
I'm alive. You're alive.
For several more moments they stayed there, huddled together in the broken ruins of that accursed temple. When Tav pulled away, Astarion kept his face down. He felt her hands in his hair, her fingers gently probing his face. "Are you all right?" He pursed his lips, silent for what felt like an eternity.
Astarion?
I don't know. I just need a moment, I think. A healing potion, maybe. Are you all right?
I have potions.
Tav pulled herself away. Trembling hands fumbled around inside her pack. He heard the soft clinking of glass. "Here, love."
Darling, I can't see.
Tav's eyes widened, not fully understanding, but then, with a quick movement, Tav brought his hand up and pressed the small round bottle in his palm, her panic quelled only by the hope it could bring. "Drink this, please."
With trembling hands, he clumsily searched for the cork, then quickly drank the liquid as though it were a shot. It tasted vile, bitter with a hint of something floral. Tav's hopeful voice pierced through his haze.
"Anything?"
I just need a moment. Just another moment.
All right.
Tav knelt beside him, though she was afraid to touch him, as if his tense aura warned her not to interrupt. Minutes passed like hours, the weight of the situation pressing down on them both. Finally, Astarion stirred and lifted his head. He blinked, but his face twisted.
Damn it.
"Astarion, we'll find a way to fix this."
Will we? Will we now? How do you propose we do that? How do we even get out of here, Tav? I can't even see anything. I can't see anything.
She swallowed the lump in her throat, her heart aching at the raw vulnerability in his voice. It was something she had never expected to hear from him. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She wished she had an answer for him. One of them had to find resolve, and Tav knew that there wasn't a choice. "Listen to me. We have to try to move. We have climbed mountains, crossed chasms, fought devils and demons. We will do this. We have to."
We have to. I don't know if I can.
They couldn't stay stuck on some broken platform in a forgotten ancient temple. They needed to get back to safety, back to camp. Somewhere within herself, Tav found a renewed conviction, gritting her teeth with a determination that could fight the gods themselves and win. "Come on, you need to stand." The command was too harsh. She softened her voice and tried again. "Can you stand?"
Astarion felt her move, heard her voice above him. Without a word, he pushed against the floor, his hand finding the wall behind him to brace himself. With some struggle, he got himself to his feet, but stayed leaning against the wall. The world felt like a chasm, and he felt as if he were about to fall into it, until Tav gripped his arm.
With me? He took a tentative step and sank back down to his knees, leaning on his hands to feel the floor ahead of him. Another choked sound came from him. All right. It's all right. I'm with you. We'll get to the rope.
I can't do this.
You can. You will. We will.
With gentle guidance, Tav coaxed Astarion forward. He crawled slowly, his movements laborious and painful. Each shuddering breath drew a pang of sympathy from Tav. Finally, they reached the rope. Tav guided Astarion's hand to the rope and then to the ledge. He gripped the rope like a lifeline, letting Tav's words guide him as he slowly moved backward to the ledge. He remembered how high the climb had been the first time, and terror gripped him for a moment. But Tav was right. They had to move.
Astarion's knuckles whitened around the rope as he descended. Every inch was torture. He couldn't see the ground or the sheer, jagged wall beside him where he was placing his feet. All he had was the rope he clung to and Tav's reassuring voice above him. He took a shaky breath, reminding himself that he was not alone. Tav was there, anchoring him to reality, even as his own senses betrayed him. It was like descending into an infinitely terrifying abyss with no promise of ending. Finally, with a last shaky step, his feet hit solid ground. He collapsed, his legs quivering like fragile reeds. Somewhere high above him, he heard Tav curse.
What is it? What's wrong? He couldn't take another moment of panic. Whatever new threat it was, he just wanted to hide from it, forever, if he could. Tavriel! She didn't answer. He felt a squeeze in his chest. Tavriel!
I'm here. I'm almost down.
Astarion heard her land next to him, her feet planted firmly on the ground. Hands reached for his arm, urging him to pull up to his feet.
What is it? What's going on?
The sun is coming up. We have to hurry.
Hurry! He clenched his fist and searched for Tav's shoulder. I'll need your help.
The admission made him wince, but the expression was fleeting. With grim determination, they continued forward through the ruins. Every step they took was cautious and slow. Every stumble and trip made Astarion curse out loud. Tav let him. Whatever helped fuel his resolve, so long as they moved as quickly as they could. They reached a point in the cavernous lower chamber of the temple where the ancient stonework had given way to time and decay. The staircase before them was fragmented, a jagged gap splitting the once solid steps into precarious, isolated ledges. Just hours before, Astarion had leapt across it with the grace of a cat, landing softly on the other side before extending a hand to pull Tav across. Now they faced it again. We need to jump, do you remember?
I remember being able to see where the blasted floor was.
We can do this. I'll help you.
Just tell me what to do, darling. I'll do my best to follow.
This was another skill she hadn't the confidence to depend on, to think of an obstacle and a way around it. Astarion had always led them through treacherous places, Tav always following his lead. Still, her mind worked, and in a second she decided. We jumped together. Take my hand. He took it, gripped it hard. He was anxious, afraid, terrified. Tav blinked back more stubborn tears and pushed through them. On 3, love, breathe. They both took shaky breaths, synchronizing. She counted. Astarion tensed every muscle. On 3, they jumped, propelled forward. Miraculously, they landed safely, even when Astarion stumbled forward. Tav's grip on his hand lurched him back, and he lay on the steps. They each took a moment to catch their breaths.
Oh, bloody hells. I never want to do that again.
Tav said nothing, giving him a well-deserved moment, though they didn't have many of those left to spare. She looked up through the broken domes in hanging curtains of vines. The sun was coming up, and it was higher now. The sky lightened to a dusty blue. "Come on, we're almost there." Her hand still gripping his, Astarion struggled to his feet. His other hand felt its way along the wall, catching creepers and vine. The last step came as a surprise, and he fell forward into Tav. She caught him, steadying him. "Almost there!" Tav and Astarion stumbled their way through the temple's labyrinthine passages, their steps hurried and erratic. She began to weave her way through the maze of roots, occasionally reaching down to untangle one from her boot or lift it out of their path. Astarion, guided by her gentle tugs and her voice, walked behind her, as if in a trance.
Asterion's feet caught on the roots more than once, his lack of sight turning even the most familiar obstacles into daunting challenges. But Tavriel was beside him, steadying him each time he stumbled, her hand a warm anchor in the chilling dark.
"Just a bit further, love." Through the tangle, they could feel an icy mist ahead and hear the sound of rushing water, a waterfall. As they reached the broken wall where the temple's confines met the wilderness, Tav felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The irony of it, water, which could burn him like holy water on a demon, and sunlight, which could have spelled his death, were now the only ways out. Tav took a deep breath, steeling herself for the next challenge. She knew water had always been deadly to Astarion, but they had no choice. They had to cross. The river?
I hear it. If this was to be his end, well, at least he died trying. Astarion clenched his teeth.
Lead the way, darling.
He put every ounce of trust he had into her. His tone betrayed a grimness, a weary acceptance of whatever fate held for him.
"We have to cross it. The columns."
I remember. Astarion felt a shift in her movement, heard the sounds of rummaging through her pack. Without a word from Tav, he felt her hands wrapping around him. What? Rope? He felt around his waist, over the leather of his armor, and felt the length of rope wrapped around his middle. The idea was good, though he became flushed with shame.
"We can't take any chances. The water won't kill you that quickly if I can pull you out. Hold on to me." She took his arm, guiding him carefully onto the sunken columns that served as stepping stones across the cascading water.
The rush of water below them was like a roaring applause, or perhaps a jeering crowd. Astarion's boot landed in a puddle, causing him to almost lose his balance. He fell to his hands and knees, felt the water seep into his leather gloves, and panicked. The yelp he gave was an involuntary habit, brought on by 200 years of fearing the pain such pure water would rack on his pale skin. But he didn't feel the sizzling pain he should have felt. There was no pain at all. He saw nothing, not his hands beneath him or the rushing water flowing over them. The water was cold, but it did not burn him. Tav was too rushed to consider what was happening, thinking his cry was one of pain, not surprise. Her arm came down across his shoulders, trying to help him back to his feet. "It doesn't hurt." He said the words absently, but whether that was him putting on bravado for her sake or some kernel of truth, Tav didn't have the time to think on it.
"The sun, Astarion. We can't waste any more time." The final stone, the final jump. They made each move together, with Tav holding him firmly around his waist, guiding him with short, curt words, with her body tensing so that he could follow her tactile lead. Every thought, every muscle in her body was in full concentration to help him cross.
Their feet landed on the soft banks of the rushing water, collapsing from spent exertion. Their hands sank into the loamy sand. The sunlight had started lifting over the peaks that surrounded them in the valley. "No!" she screamed, scrambling to pull Astarion to get him to safety out of the sun. Her body was so worn and so very tired. Every move was sluggish, as if fighting against a current to push onto her feet, grabbing his arm.
Astarion couldn't be coaxed to move, heaving on the banks. It was as if he could almost allow the sun to consume him now and turn him to ash. If that was to be his end, then he could rejoice in making sure Tavriel had gotten to safety. But as the sun crested over the peaks, Tavriel screaming his name to get up, to move, he felt it. He felt the sun. It didn't burn. Astarion's mind couldn't comprehend this cruel twist of fate. He couldn't hear Tav anymore, her shouts, her crying for him to get to his feet. The blackness that enveloped his world was now embraced by a warm sensation against his face, brushing his cheek like a long-lost friend. He hadn't the mind to celebrate, but instead he just laughed bitterly. Softly, he laughed, and his laughter grew louder, darker, harsher. Then he screamed, all his ire directed at the sun.
Damn you to the 9 hells, you fucking bastard! Damn you all!
Tav felt her heart plummet as Astarion's laughter filled the air, tinged with a bitterness that clawed at her. She took a shaky step toward him, her eyes wide as he shouted curses into his dark world. Tav stilled and stood silent, staring at him. Astarion lay on the banks of the rushing water and sobbed pitifully against the sand. She had never seen him so broken, not even in their previous escapades that put them through hellish experiences. All she could do was stand there, listening to his sobs meld with the sounds of the rushing river.